firing right there. Yeah, so I think we're in good
Okay.
shape. Yeah.
All right. Awesome.
Well, it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out today. And I'd love to begin our conversation with we're coming up on the 4-year anniversary of the pandemic. How did
Hmm.
you get through the pandemic and how did it change you?
You ready for a story?
Yes, I am.
So, I actually got married and moved cross country. So a little bit about me. As we get into my story a little bit more, I'm one of my main missions is to help people with complex PTSD, because I grew up with it. And so, really long story short, I mean, I got married older. Um, my husband proposed to me on my 46th birthday, January 2020, and so I was at the top of my game. I'd overcome a lot of anxieties. I was in a great place. And I'm from Utah originally. And all my life, they told me about when Utah gets an earthquake, it is going to destroy lives and blah, 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 blah. So, we grew up kind of gripped in fear of, oh my goodness, it's not if, but when the big one hits, right? So we go on lockdown. And I was fine with that. I'm like, this is going to be fine. A little glitch in the wedding plans. And then the day after the lockdowns, Utah gets a 5.7 earthquake, the biggest earthquake I'd ever experienced in my life.
Wow.
And they're predicting another one. So anyway, it was crazy. So, and then I had a COVID wedding in August and jumped in the car and, anywhere my husband and I went to like gas stations, we had our little masks on and yeah. So it's
Wow.
uprooted
Th-
my life. But
yeah, that's quite a story. So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do for a living. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders at career day, and one of the
Mhm.
kids asks you, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
I am a couple different things. I am an author and a speaker. I'm a child advocate, and my day job, I'm an enrollment counselor to kind of help high school dropouts get into an online diploma program. So while I
Oh,
write
cool.
and work on um, my passion, which is my advocacy, I work as an enrollment counselor. So,
So what did you want to be when you were in the third grade?
mom, and then mom and a nurse.
Yeah.
So no mom, I'm not gonna be a mom, but not a nurse either. I don't like blood, but
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
that's kind of what I wanted to do. But actually in the third grade, I had an amazing teacher and she would have us write our letters and kind of that was our writing assignments and that's where I learned how to write. So
Okay. All
kind of set
right.
the stage. So
Yeah. What was the first book you read when you were a kid that you really loved?
well, my mom would always read us like I remember the first non-picture book was I think it was Ramona the Pest. So
Yeah.
she'd read to us at night. And then my favorite childhood book was which Blackbird Pond, which I still love. So
Okay. So how did take me back to where you were born and raised and how your life got to a point where you're an advocate now? What was kind of the timeline and what happened to get you to this point where you are trying to help others?
well, let's see. Won't get into my parents' cute love story, but they're a very unlikely couple.
Yeah.
My dad was from DC, my mom was from Utah. I was their firstborn. I was born in Walter Reed Hospital, actually, in
Wow.
Bethesda, Maryland. And when I was 6 months old, my dad got stationed on his first ship, and that was in Hawaii. So we moved to Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, and my brother was born out there. My dad was murdered out there. We moved back to Utah to live with my parent or with my mom and her parents and everything. And my biggest thing, like I didn't allow myself to grieve my dad's death until I was 30. My mom was an open book. She's amazing. I mean, I've actually listened to your podcast and you talk about heroes. My mom is my hero.
Yeah.
Like, she was a young widow. She got her life together. She always answered our questions about my dad. She's an angel. She's amazing. And, but she remarried when I was 6. And so it's just interesting because it seems like society has some unwritten rules about children and grief. Like, I was 2 when my dad was killed. My brother was 8 months old when my dad was killed. Um, and they're like, oh, good, you're too young to remember. And I was like, I spent my whole life going, oh my gosh, I am so glad that I missed that pain, that I missed, I don't have any memories of my dad. And my voice is shaking. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
But anyway, um, but I was just like, the crazy thing is when I was in my mid 30s, I was diagnosed with CPTSD because I was afraid of everything.
Yeah.
Like my mom would leave the house. I would be praying that she'd be safe. I like, it's just interesting because you talk about COVID and what it's done to like teenagers with kids. I grew up afraid of everything because I was hyper aware of my mortality. I feel like COVID has done the same thing to a lot of our kids. And so I spent my life in a state of fight or flight, even though I have my stepdad's wonderful. I've got, a big family. I've got 5 more brothers that are my best friends. But like, there was always this, I was tired of being afraid of everything. And also there's just like this hole. There was something that was missing. And it's so weird. It could go so deep, but like I feel like anxious people feel like they are almost second class people.
Right.
Like they're people pleasers. They're open to narcissists. I mean, I don't want to be like, oh, woe is me, but like as I've gotten older and I allowed myself to grieve my dad's death and start investigating like what happens to children when they've gone through traumatic events, there are some very, very strong similarities.
Yes.
And that's the biggest thing is like it took me, well, there was a guy that I was interested in when I was 30, and he's just like, what are you doing, kind of thing. And I got my bachelor's degree anyway. That's another long story, but like, um, his mom had just died about 2 months earlier, and we are talking like, oh yeah, well, my dad died when I was young, but that's it's not the same. I'm so sorry, your mom, she died 2 months ago, and he's like, you have every right to be sad because you missed out on a lot. You have
Yeah.
every right to miss your dad because you missed out on so much.
Yeah.
So, and that's when I
So
started.
do you ever feel like his presence is there or he's ever visited you? Any of
Oh,
that?
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I grew up in a very strong Christian family. I still am. And it's really cool. Like, I had some very powerful spiritual experiences. Um, the first one was a dream that I had when I was a little kid. I think I was 5.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. I didn't. One thing about my grief, like when my mom remarried, they took my dad's picture down, that picture.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so I immediately was like, okay, I can't talk about him. And then when I was 11, I started talking to my mom a little bit. It was my stepdad was gone, my brothers, they were somewhere. And because I felt guilty, I'm like, well, I don't have the right. But anyway, so I started talking to her and I tell her about this dream that I had. And I was wearing this purple and green dress that she had made for me when I was 4, and my parents were singing this hymn, and my brother we're just walking home from church. That was it. And she's just like, that was your dad's funeral hymn. And then she brings down to the purple and green dress and she's like, I don't know why I kept this. So that, there was that. And then I went back. He's buried in Arlington. And so I went back when I was 17, and I was still like, this amazing man that I've heard stories about my whole life. Sure, but I still don't miss him. And I might get emotional, but as soon as I saw his name, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine.
I get emotional at different times, but as
Yeah.
soon as I saw his name, he's like, I've always been here. And I felt that connection. I just started sobbing, and it's like, yeah. So there would be times when I'd hear that hymn, or
Yeah.
else I'd just have these little thoughts that I was just like,
Yeah.
I'd tell my mom, I'd be like, I had this thought. And she's like, that's exactly the way your dad would have put it. So I am very much like, I'm not the person to say they are there, believe in the afterlife, they are there. But I am one to say, if you think they're there, believe it,
Yeah.
because I've had way too many uncanny experiences. So
Yeah. That's the first thing that popped into my head when you talked about your age is that there would be a visit and a feeling. Um,
I love it.
so let me ask you this. If you can meet one person alive on the planet right now that you find fascinating or inspiring, who would that be? Who would you love to meet?
Right now, because of where I'm at and like with what I'm wanting to do, which is bring awareness to childhood grief, um, Dylan McDermott, kind of those 3, Bono or Kelsey Grammer,
Oh,
because
cool.
they lost a parent when they were young, and they're bringing up a little bit more awareness, especially Dylan McDermott, because he was told his mom's death was a suicide, and it was homicide. And so he
Oh,
reopened the case, which is kind of what I did.
yeah.
And because, yeah, my dad was murdered. And also Kelsey Grammer, same thing.
Wow. That's
So,
fascinating. Yeah.
yeah.
So what is the motivation for you? I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, as a writer and as an advocate, when you get
Mhm.
up every day, what is that motivation for you to not only do the work that you do, but to evolve as a person as well? What is that for you?
Um, Couple things is I believe in God, and I believe that He has expectations for me, and I've seen Him make my life better than anything I could have imagined. This guy right here, I know that, I mean, he's made it very clear that he wants me to help other people, and also I don't want people to go through what I did for so long.
Yeah.
Those are the 3 things, is God, my dad, and I want other people to be happy faster. So,
So do you, it seems to me that there's a lot of people out there that have unresolved
mhm,
PTSD or trauma from their early part of their lives. And
mhm,
until they have a flashpoint, they're not going to deal with it.
right. Until they're allowed, given permission.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it because I think, if you're still grieving, what, a month later? I mean, and I will be honest, like, I still get triggered by grief and things like that. I don't wanna live as, "Oh, I'm the grieving person." It's more of like, I'm part of this organization called TAPS. Have you heard of them through the
Yeah.
military? Yeah,
Yeah.
life-changing. Like, I went to one of their events, and it is like they call it the happiest group of sad people you'll ever meet because they have conferences where you go and you're able to talk and connect and everything like that, but it's like I can't even remember where I was going with this, but like just what was your question?
I was, what is it that gets you up every day and motivated to
Okay.
be you?
Yeah. I don't want people to be I think you said that there are a lot of people who have unresolved grief.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and there are. And it's so interesting because I feel like just opening up the conversation and normalizing it and being like, you know what, this is completely natural. I mean, of course, I've gone to therapy, and my therapist is even like, this is not in your head. This is a physical thing. Understanding the triggers, um, knowing how to work with them. Like, I hate to fly because, again, very, very anxious, but it's like, okay, well, if I don't want to drive my husband crazy on a flight, I get to take Valium and it's okay. Just
Yeah.
understanding how to work with it, but also, you know, normalizing it more. These little kids, like, even I've met so many my friends, a lot of my friends are widows and they have little kids, and they'll be like, "Okay, what's going on with my kid?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, they feel this way," because they carry that anxiety. They almost carry that, like, I have to take care of my family. They're just a lot of different traits where these poor kids are carrying the weight of their world on their shoulders.
Yeah.
They're embarrassed because they're like, "Well, my dad died. I don't remember him." It's just, I think, allowing that space in general, that grief is not a disease. It's something that's real and something that stays with us that we're allowed to revisit when our heart needs to. So,
So have you gotten to a point where you dealing with this through therapeutic measures and everything that you do to heal yourself, that you've hit kind of a
mhm,
plateau? It's not like you're ever going to get over it, but have you hit a
right.
place where you feel more comfortable and you can just kind of add to it, or how does that work?
Well, it's really interesting because, like I said earlier, all I wanted to be was a mom, and it took me a while to find my husband, and he's worth it. Definitely one of those. God has a plan. I'm going to, he's worth every minute of the wait. But like, here I had, my house, my husband. I'm happy. I'm living in this cute little part of the country, and I was more anxious than I'd ever been. And
Yeah.
so some of those things came back, and so it's just I haven't hit a plateau, but I've also learned that sometimes that's one thing about PTSD is things can come back and knock you off a little bit.
Yeah.
And so you just have to use those tools. I went back to TAPS last summer because I was like, "What? I feel like I've gone backwards." I went back to TAPS last summer and I talked to Bob Delaney. He's the referee. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's an expert he calls it post-traumatic stress. He doesn't like the disorder part, but I talked to him and just a bunch of other people, and it was just kind of like, this is totally normal. This is how
Yeah.
you deal with it. And I think just it probably cut my anxiety in half. So
Yeah.
I think having a community and understanding that you're normal and you're fine and you don't need to worry about, being the perfectionist you want to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So let me ask you this: of all the things that you've done and overcome and evolved into in your life, what are you the proudest of?
facing my dad's death head on, his facing my finding we not to give too much away in the book, but it's crazy. I still look back and I'm like, I can't believe this is my life. Um, the book is one thing, and also actually the thing I'm the most proud of is that I did it, that I didn't give up until I had the answers that I knew I needed. Like,
Yeah.
I'm being vague because it's in the book,
Right.
but,
Yeah.
um, it's, and that I did it. My tenacity, I am the most proud that I was able to, accomplish what I needed to come to peace with my dad's death, and also I have to leave it there.
That's good. That's fine. So let me ask you this. Everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends,
Mhm.
all of the fans you have, everybody around you, but ultimately you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Um, I think I am a girl that has wanted to have fun her whole life. I'm somebody who wants everybody to be happy. I'm somebody who will fight to bring like peace and happiness to those I love. Like, I'll do whatever it takes. So in a nutshell, I'm a very I'm all about connection with across the board with our angels, with others. I want to I'm the type of person who wants to people to be able to have love and connection and to be able to have access to that. Does that
Yeah. Yeah. So if anyone wants to
so
get the book, reach out, learn more about you, anything about your world, where can they go?
angelinarlington.com. That's my website. We're still building it up. I mean, it's there, but we're starting to kind of promote more. We're in the process of finding an agent. We're going traditional route. My co-author, Bridget Cook Birch, there's a couple websites you can look her stuff up. She's amazing. Um, I can tell you this part. She met my dad's killer, if that's anyway.
Wow.
So, um, yourinspiredstory.com, but angelinarlington.com. The book's called Angel in Arlington. Angelinarlington.com is a great place, and there'll be more things to take it there. I mean, it's. Do I want this book published now? Yeah, but I'm
Yeah.
also waiting for it to be published right. So,
Yeah. Excellent. So thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your time. It's fascinating, and when it's out there, hopefully everybody gets out there and gets a copy.